All right, let's just jump right in, shall we? Welcome to today's explainer. So, we're looking at a text today that is, well, incredibly short, but man, it carries a colossal emotional and rhetorical weight. We're talking about a wartime speech that comes in at exactly 49 words. Yep, literally just 49 words. That's basically one paragraph, just 4 sentences long. But as you'll see, the way these words are put together is a total masterclass in how language functions under extreme pressure. Our goal today is to unpack each structural element of this statement. We're not going to add anything extra, we're just going step by step through the text itself to see exactly how it journeys from the deeply personal to, well, harsh reality.
Now, before we start at the very beginning, we really need to address the heaviest, absolutely most direct sentence from the entire source. Listen to this. You all know perfectly well there is trouble in the country, a pure war. Wow, right? The speaker isn't even trying to hide or soften anything here. This lays down an absolute fact that needs zero proof for the listeners. So I want you to keep this stark reality in the back of your mind as we rewind a bit. Let's look at how the speaker actually masterfully prepares the audience for these exact words.
All right, moving to section 1. Audience connection, the opening.
You know, any strong speech has to begin by establishing contact. And instead of jumping straight to the war, the speaker uses their very first words to build trust and intimacy with the people standing right in front of them, saying, I am happy to be among such people. Now, given the context of a war, hearing the word happy is kind of unexpected, isn't it? But actually, it creates this psychologically safe space before dropping the really heavy news. It's laying down a vital rhetorical foundation of brotherhood. It instantly bridges any gap between the speaker and the listener, basically saying, hey, we're all equal parts of this group.
So the speaker finishes this opening thought by saying they are among people with whom they don't need to bend the soul. I love this. It's a Ukrainian idiom that literally translates to bending or twisting the soul, which basically means acting hypocritically. By throwing out this phrase, the speaker is declaring this profound desire for absolute honesty. It's like they're visualizing a space with zero political games, no hidden truths, just the real deal. And this promise of absolute transparency is exactly what sets up the audience for the much harsher pivot that comes next.
Which brings us to section 2, acknowledging reality, and that pivot to reality. Okay, so having locked in that intimate connection, the speaker sharply shifts focus. They transition from that comfort of being among their people to an unavoidable collision with the outside world. The text here compares 2 consecutive terms. First, the speaker says there is trouble, which, was a pretty broad term, right? It could mean misfortune, grief, maybe even an economic crisis. But then they immediately escalate to pure war. That word pure acts as an absolute. The speaker takes the situation from a mere tragedy right up to an existential, totally unmitigated conflict, basically leaving absolutely zero room for illusions.
Next up is section 3, message to attackers, addressing the aggressors.
Now, this is probably the most surprising twist in these 49 words. Having acknowledged this pure war, the speaker makes a kind of surreal move and talks to the enemy directly. God grant those little people operating tanks and grads, God grant they hear it. Notice that double use of God grant there? It's this desperate, really profound wish. But the absolutely crucial part is a term little people. It's a diminutive form in the original text. Using that to describe the people bringing death, it creates a massive, jarring contrast. It highlights their insignificance in the face of a larger truth, all while projecting this incredibly striking wish that the attackers across the front lines might somehow actually hear this message.
And this contrast gets even sharper when we isolate the specific tools of war mentioned. We're talking about tanks and grads, which are these massive rocket launcher systems. The text is intentionally juxtaposing the harsh, mechanical cruelty of this heavy machinery against those little people and the raw human emotion we unpacked at the start of the explainer. It's literally the ultimate clash between a soul that won't bend and the soulless metal that's brought about this pure war. Moving into section 4, honoring heroes, the resolution.
Of course, the monologue has to conclude, and it naturally shifts from that really tense, direct address to the attackers into something far more solemn and eternal. Eternal memory and glory to the heroes. This is a very traditional formula for honoring the fallen. After establishing a connection, acknowledging the tragedy, and addressing the enemy, well, this is really the only logical conclusion. This brief phrase effectively grounds the entire emotional journey we just went on. It turns the immediate reflections of the speech into a lasting historical monument.
So, that brings us to the final question for today's explainer. How on earth can a mere 49 words, literally just 4 short sentences, encapsulate such a vast, complex, emotional spectrum?
I mean, from profound intimacy and honesty to the stark awareness of an absolute war, then to a surreal dialogue with enemy machines, and finally to eternal honor, it really just proves that in moments of the greatest upheaval, language crystallizes. You don't need 1,000 words when every single pause, every idiom, and every contrast carries the full weight of reality. So, I'm going to leave you with this to chew on. Pay attention to the words we choose in the darkest of times. Thank you so much for taking this focused journey with me today, and hey, we'll catch you in the next explainer.